Michael faces the dragon and his fallen angels. For any team to win, there must be a contest. Revelation 12 describes the ultimate battle between good and evil. The hosts of heaven take on the dragon and his angels. Does good eventually win? And war broke out in heaven. Michael the archangel and his angels waging war with the dragon. The dragon and his angels fought, but they were not strong enough and did not prevail, and there was no longer a place found for them in heaven. Revelation chapter 12 verses 7 through 8. War broke out in heaven. God will turn the tide against Satan at the midpoint of the Great Tribulation, first in heaven, then on earth. Satan will be denied access to heaven as a result of a battle. While Satan is likely headed to hell, he is not presently there. It's common to see cartoons depicting Satan in a red outfit with a pitchfork and pointed tail. But such medieval folklore is hardly faithful to the biblical picture. In Job 1, Satan is mentioned as having access to heaven and visiting God's presence there. This brings us to Revelation 12, where the devil and his imps march on heaven, creating a cosmic spiritual conflict. As the dragon fought, he did not prevail. The archangel Michael was God's champion and commanding general of God's forces. We read, Michael and his angels. The most well-known angelic being in the Bible is probably Michael, along with Gabriel. What exactly does Michael's role as an archangel entail? In what capacity does he fit into God's heavenly host? What has he accomplished? And what are his duties? Michael. That name begs the question, who is comparable to God? Many parents who name their sons Michael have no idea what the name means. Michael is introduced to us by the prophet Daniel. Michael and his angels fought with the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought. This is a dramatic scene of a battle between good angels and evil angels, faithful angels and fallen angels. Who fights in this battle? Satan represents the dragon, and Satan is not God's counterpart. God has no peer. Michael, the chief angel opposing this chief of fallen angels. Why is the battle fought? In a previous scene of conflict between Michael and Satan, Jude 9, Satan had faced Michael. Here is another occasion where Satan wants to get in the way of God's plan for the end times. Based on Daniel, Jewish people recognized Michael as their guardian prince, who would defend them from the angels of the other nations who sought to oppress them. Daniel chapter 10 verse 13. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia was standing in opposition to me for 21 days. Then behold, Michael, one of the chief of the celestial princes, came to help me, for I had been left there with the kings of Persia. Michael could single-handedly ward off angels of other nations. Michael's power, however, had limits. He could not overstep his authority, and hence could not act against Satan himself without the permission of God. Moreover, he would be ordered to stand out of the way, so Israel could experience the final tribulation. Jude 9. But Michael the archangel, when he disputed with the devil and argued about the body of Moses, did not dare pronounce against him an abusive judgment, but said, "The Lord rebuke you." Here, however, Michael and his forces cast down Satan's forces, symbolizing Christ's earthly victory in heaven. When is this battle fought? This battle happens at the midpoint of the 7 years, as described by Daniel. Daniel chapter 12 verse 1. Now at that end time, Michael, the great angelic prince who stands guard over the children of your people, will arise. And there will be a time of distress, such as never occurred since there was a nation until that time. But at that time, your people, everyone who is found written in the book of life will be rescued. How is this battle fought? We know this is a real fight, but is it a material or a spiritual battle? Our battle with Satan and his demons is spiritual, fought on the battleground of truth and deception, of fear and faith. Ephesians chapter 6 verse 12. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, contending only with physical opponents, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly supernatural places. Regarding material attacks against the believer, Satan and his demons were disarmed at the cross. Colossians chapter 2 verse 15. When he had disarmed the rulers and authorities, those supernatural forces of evil operating against us, he made a public example of them, exhibiting them as captives in his triumphal procession, having triumphed over them through the cross. In his classic work Paradise Lost, the great poet Milton imagined this battle. Michael bids sound, the archangel trumpet, through the vast of heaven it sounded, and the faithful armies run. Hosanna to the highest, nor stood at gaze the adverse legions, nor less hideous joined the horrid shock, now storming fury rose. And clamor such as heard in heaven till now was never, arms on armor clashing braid, horrible discord, and the madding wheels of brazen chariots raged. Dire was the noise of conflict. Overhead the dismal hiss of fiery darts and flaming volleys flew, and flying vaulted either host with fire. So under fiery cope together rushed both battles main, with ruinous assault and inextinguishable rage. All heaven resounded, and had earth been then, all earth had to her center shook. Revelation chapter 12 verse 9. And the great dragon was thrown down, the age-old serpent who is called the devil and Satan, he who continually deceives and seduces the entire inhabited world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. Immediately following Satan's defeat, and prior to his war against the church, a loud voice in heaven proclaims God and his people's victory over Satan the accuser. In verse 9, the dragon is identified as Satan, but in verse 10, he is described as the accuser, who brings charges against God's people. Satan refers to his identity, but accuser refers to his role in God's war against his people. Since believers triumphed over Satan, they are confident of victory, even though Satan continually accuses them. Their victory over Satan was based on three factors: the blood of the Lamb, their faithful testimony to Jesus, their faithfulness to Christ. A faithful testimony to Christ brings them victory in this spiritual war. We read, "So the great dragon was cast out." Throughout this verse, our spiritual enemy is referred to as dragon, the serpent of old, devil, Satan, and the one who deceives the whole world. These titles describe Satan as vicious, an accuser, an adversary, and a deceiver. We read, "He was cast to the earth." The Bible describes various falls of Satan, and Revelation chapter 12 verse 9 describes the second of these four falls. He fell from glorified to profane. Ezekiel chapter 28 verses 14 through 15. You were the anointed cherub who covers and protects, and I placed you there. You were on the holy mountain of God. You walked in the midst of the stones of fire, sparkling jewels. You were blameless in your ways, from the day you were created until unrighteousness and evil were found in you. Satan went from having access to heaven to restriction to the earth. 1 Kings chapter 22 verse 21. Then a spirit came forward and stood before the Lord and said, I will entice him. Satan also went from the earth to bondage in the bottomless pit for 1,000 years. Revelation chapter 20 verses 1 through 2. And then I saw an angel descending from heaven, holding the key of the abyss, the bottomless pit, and a great chain was in his hand. And he overpowered and laid hold of the dragon, that old serpent of primeval times, who was the devil and Satan, and bound him securely for 1,000 years, a millennium. We read, his angels were cast out with him. This implies that demonic spirits are fallen angels who allied with Satan in his rebellion against God. These are his angels. These angels are also the same as the third of the stars of heaven described in Revelation chapter 12 verse 4. And his tail swept across the sky and dragged away a third of the stars of heaven and flung them to the earth. And the dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she gave birth, he might devour her child. It's comforting to know that faithful angels outnumber fallen angels 2 to 1, since Satan only drew a third of the stars of heaven. A joyful declaration in heaven. Revelation chapter 12, verses 10 through 12. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, Now the salvation and the power and the kingdom, dominion, reign of our God, and the authority of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our believing brothers and sisters has been thrown down at last. He who accuses them and keeps bringing charges of sinful behavior against them before our God day and night. And they overcame and conquered him, because of the blood of the Lamb, and because of the word of their testimony. For they did not love their life and renounce their faith, even when faced with death. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them in the presence of God. Woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has come down to you in great wrath, knowing that he has only a short time remaining. We read, The accuser of our brethren, who accused them before our God day and night, has been cast down. Satan's accusing work ends here, when he is cast out from his access to heaven. That is why today we need an intercessor and advocate. Hebrews chapter 7 verse 25. Therefore he is able also to save forever, completely, perfectly, for eternity, those who come to God through him, since he always lives to intercede and intervene on their behalf with God. 1 John chapter 2 verse 1. My little children, believers, dear ones, I am writing you these things so that you will not sin and violate God's law. And if anyone sins, we have an advocate who will intercede for us with the Father, Jesus Christ the righteous, the upright, the just one, who conforms to the Father's will in every way, purpose, thought, and action. We read, And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, and by the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives to the death. This tells us 3 keys to the saints' victory over Satan. Satan may have deceived even himself into thinking that he has a chance. Our rebellion against God makes even less sense than Satan's rebellion does. The heavens can rejoice over the dragon's departure, but it is bad news for the earth and the sea. The devil knows his time is short, and he is determined to pour out his wrath as widely as possible. The dragon's spleen is vented, especially against Israel, the nation from which the Messiah came. John then offers a simple strategy for believers to overcome Satan's attacks, a 3-fold plan against the devil's assaults: covering, confession, and courage. Christians who think spiritual warfare is an excellent subject to debate but don't think it impacts their lives daily may be vulnerable to spiritual defeat. Good soldiers of Jesus Christ know Satan roams the earth seeking those whom he may devour. We must be ready. 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 8. Be sober, well-balanced and self-disciplined. Be alert and cautious at all times. That enemy of yours, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, fiercely hungry, seeking someone to devour. The primary way Satan attacks the people of God is through blasphemy, and he is the accuser of our brethren. Even so, believers have a divine advocate before God named Jesus Christ. 1 John chapter 2 verse 1. My little children, believers, dear ones, I am writing you these things so that you will not sin and violate God's law. And if anyone sins, we have an advocate who will intercede for us with the Father, Jesus Christ the righteous, the upright, the just one, who conforms to the Father's will in every way, purpose, thought, and action. Satan, the adversary, may seek to destroy God's people, but Jesus Christ is the Good Shepherd. John chapter 10 verse 11. I am the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd lays down his own life for the sheep. John chapter 10 verse 14. I am the Good Shepherd, and I know without any doubt those who are my own, and my own know me, and have a deep personal relationship with me. There are many lessons here. The truth? First, victory only comes with a fight. Every crown comes at a cost. There's no success without sacrifice. The good news is anything worth achieving is worth the fight. Michael didn't fight alone, and the saints didn't defeat the enemy alone. Victory rarely comes without teamwork. God designed us to win in community. A victory should always be celebrated. The heavens rejoice when the Lamb wins. The greater the victory, the greater the celebration.
In closing, our question for the day: what's a worship song that has helped you feel closer to God?